All right, people, we are live. Search for Uhuru, and I have my brother. Who always has a
All right, people,
home.
we are
Oh,
live.
hold
Search
on
for
1 second. My
Uhuru.
bad, my bad, my bad. Let me turn it.
And I have
My brother, who always has a home here. Let me clean the camera. Who always has a home here on the Search for Uhuru platform. Me and my brother was doing 2 to 3 shows a week. You know, everybody loves Awini Baba. You guys know Awini Baba. So Awini Baba, it's been a minute. We are so happy and thankful to have you back. So glad to see you and that you're back on the platform, Awini Baba. Everybody, give it up for Awini Baba.
Thanks for having me. I'm almost flattered with all of the accolades and applause, but we're all learning and we're sharing our experiences. So it's good to be back on here. Uh, I've been busy with family stuff, school stuff. So I've been pretty much indisposed, but I've found time to follow up with some of the discussions that Search for Hulu has been doing, and the trips to Benin and so on. So it's good to be back.
Awini, again, it's. I'm so happy. We're happy to see you again, brother. It's been, like I said, it's been a minute. We are
Yeah,
happy and thankful that all is well on your end, and again, we're just happy that you're back on the platform. And I want to apologize for not linking up with you when I was in Kumasi, brother. I was just
yeah,
running around crazy, and I apologize that we did not connect. But hopefully, when I come back in December, we connect things. I will be back in Ghana in Kumasi in December, so hopefully we can definitely connect in.
yeah. Well, I look forward to it, and we look forward to welcoming you back to Ghana again. But I hope everybody is doing well. And just keep the fire blazing and never give up on the African Renaissance because it's a must.
And I, want-
It's
I,
either
want- I want you to say that one more time, Winnie. Say that one more time.
yeah. So I was saying that everybody should keep their head up and never give up, and keep the fire blazing. Never give up on the African Renaissance, and we have to make it happen. Otherwise, we're done. You know, uh, a lot of us are under the misconception that some people or some God is going to fly down and help us. There's some miracle going to happen. There's no miracle going to happen from anywhere. The only miracle that can happen is what we make happen. The
Mm.
only time that African people have seen some change in their conditions has been when African people have stood up and shed some blood and sweat. That's when we saw change. It's not by praying or sitting down and complaining. None of that helps. None of that. You see, so it's all about keeping the spirit alive and keeping the spirit going and never giving up.
Mm. Mm. Now,
Yeah.
the subject today or the topic is wandering in in the wilderness.
Yeah.
What made you want to speak on that?
Yeah, so not to be biblical here because I'm not a biblical person, but I took the inspiration from the story of the Israelites leaving Egypt and trying to return to, Israel, and they had to wander in the wilderness for 40 years before they got back.
Hmm.
And that's kind of where we're at right now. If you study what happened to Africa. Most people don't. You see, most of us, some of us know the history, and that's the sad thing about Africa. Actually, is the other day I was listening to you and O'Shea and about our situation and how Some African Americans were shocked when they came to Africa that Africans, a lot of Africans that were not taught in school about the transatlantic slave trade or even the Arab slave trade. And so most Africans, are pretty much delinquent on the subject. And because we've not had a curriculum that cuts across the African community, both in Africa and the diaspora and so on, it's difficult to be on the same page as far as what we have been through. But we've been through a lot, and a lot of people cannot appreciate how far we've come, and we're still here. We're very resilient people, and some people can't stand us. Some people, they wish they could flush us out, uh, you know, just like that, but it's not going to happen. And this is testimony that we're a very resilient people. We inhabited this planet long before any other people came along with a civilization, and so wandering in the wilderness, it's kind of trying to first of all give us a recognition of the kind of people we used to be, and how it is that we lost our glory when we came in contact with a people that had a temperament that was bred or influenced or nurtured by harsher environment. Most people don't understand. They say, so if Africans were so powerful and whatnot, why is it that other people conquered them? Why is it the Arabs and Europeans conquered them? And my response to them is, uh, it depends on your temperament. If you live in a place like Danas, you've been to Benin, right?
Correct.
Yeah, if you live in Benin, for instance, and there's a lot of forests and a lot of food grows in the forest, you don't need to fight with anybody over food. In those times, you didn't need to do that. You can just go and pick it in the bush. You don't, even if you farm, you don't need to put much effort into it. The conditions are good. Uh, if you grow up in that kind of environment, an environment that affords you the basic necessities of life, and you encounter somebody who has to fight for his breakfast, lunch, and dinner, if he has any, if you encounter him, he's gonna overcome you because his environment is more hostile, and so he is bred by that environment. He's more hostile than you. He's better than you. You see, and that basically that was the downfall of African people is we were bred by favorable conditions. We had, favorable weather. We had our food. We could get access to the basic things of life. We did not need to fight all the time over our women, our partners, our food, and all of those things. But other people needed to, and these people became hardened as a
Right.
result. And so when we encountered them, the result had to be in their favor. But that doesn't make them superior. It's your environment that makes you. You see, and
Mhm.
and so to get an understanding of that and what we used to be, and when we encountered these people bred by harsher environments and their impact on us and their designs to continue to subdue us, because Africa or African people, we have and still have what the world needs and the world doesn't care to pay for. They don't want to pay for what
Right.
they get out of it. And so there has to be a systematic design to keep us down
Hmm.
and to keep us following some quagmire, you know, in order for them to keep getting what they need from us. So basically, wandering in the wilderness is trying to make us understand why it is that we seem to find it very difficult to get back
Right.
to ourselves. I see a lot of effort. I see African Americans trying to go back to Africa, and I listen to, I'm an avid listener of Dr. Sebi.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to a lot of lectures, and he dropped some basic truths. And Dr. Sebi said that, the only African that he has encountered is in America.
Mm.
There's a
What does he mean by that? If you could expand on that.
The reason he said that is that Africans are looking to Europe and America,
Mm-hmm.
African Africa. You go to Caribbean, it's pretty much the same. But you go to America, a lot of African Americans are looking to Africa, not to Europe.
Uh.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of African Americans, and even some people in the diaspora, I'll give them that. They're looking to Africa. And Africans, you get to Africa, and Africans are looking elsewhere.
Right.
That's the irony of it. And so, if you're African and you're looking to somebody else for your salvation and civilization, then you're messed up. So, why is it that we seem to hit a brick wall? Even African Americans trying to come back home or trying to relate to Africa, they hit a lot of snags. They're trying to understand how the African system works, and I don't even themselves understand how the African system works.
Right.
You see, and Africans in Africa are trying to be, these Negropeans,
Right.
to use the new age, conscious word Negropeans, because Africans think that, it's classy, or, there's something enlightening about civilization. So all of this it's got us confused because we encountered these invaders who came with a different system, you know, and they brought this system not for our benefit, but to help promote their dominance over us.
Yes.
And a lot of us are caught up in this quagmire, and we're wandering in this wilderness, and a lot of us don't know what we want to be anymore. The average African that I have met in the world has no self awareness.
Mm.
He doesn't know whether he wants to be an African or an Asian. A lot of Africans want to be anything but African,
Yes.
plain and
I agree.
simple.
I agree.
And it reflects in everything you see in our taste of entertainment, movies, our politics. In the bleaching and the
Yes.
frying of hair and wearing weaves and all of that nonsense. I call it nonsense because how what will be going through your mind that you want to look like your oppressor?
Exactly.
I mean, there's something wrong with that.
It's a
Why?
sickness. It's a sickness.
Yeah, exactly. So why would out of all of the people you can be in the world, you want to look like the very person that beat your grandmother and your grandfather up on the fields, and continue to oppress your people worldwide and to talk trash to them? Why would you want to be that person rather than to be something else or even yourself?
I don't know why. Is it self hate? Awini, like why do you think so? Because let me tell you this story. I had the brother Samorian on Saturday, and he said when
Hmm.
he was going to the University of Texas in Austin, he would wear his African clothing, and the Africans were
Hmm.
wearing full suits, like European suits. And he said that
Yeah.
the Africans in the European suits will look at him like he was crazy for wearing his African attire. Why is that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not surprising, actually. Africa. Most people think that Africans, are conscious, or they have some African vibe. A lot of Africans. and I stand to be corrected on this, but I've met a lot of young Africans growing up here that just want to be European.
Right.
They they want to get. It's like when you get up, you get up in a higher class,
Mm-hmm.
or in society. You
Mm-hmm.
don't want to associate with Africa, and so if you wear clothing that reflect Africa, then it's like you're going backward.
Mm-hmm.
You see, and this is not an accident, by the way. It's not an accident. It's not an accident. This is it's a design, and that's why it's important that we have these talks and lectures. Is when we encountered these people, they
Hey,
invaded.
Winnie, go ahead and keep going. I'm gonna need 2 minutes. I gotta take my son to the bathroom real quick. So go ahead and keep going. Give me 2 minutes.
Yeah, no problem. So when we encountered these people, you know, they came and they systematically designed systems, to kind of keep us down and to keep them on top. And so when we go to school, we have to ask what the curriculum in the school is. We have to ask what the philosophy of Africa is. And the last time I remember, I had a lecture with, I had a hangout with Dinest about this, the philosophy of African education. You see, if we don't have a philosophy, then we're lost. And so when we encounter all of these people, we encountered all of these people, they imprinted on us, you see. And so in their imprinting on us, they imposed a lot of their stuff on us and made it the hype. They made it the thing to be. And our people followed suit. And as a result of that, we have all of these Africans wanting to be anything but African. That's a tragedy. And that's why it's important that we have these discussions here on Hangout. And so we chose wandering in the wilderness symbolically to mean that when we come out of oppression as a people, and any group of people who come out of oppression, they don't come out the same. You don't meet an oppressor and overcome the oppressor completely. You may win some, but you definitely cannot win all. So when Africa won, I guess I should say politically, political independence, it behooved us to follow up with social independence. And I say social because it is in the social that we define who we were and who we must be today. And I feel very sorry about African people worldwide because I find African people the most confused, the most lost people on the face of this planet currently. Because every time you turn on the TV or you watch anything, media or whatever, you find Africans there clowning, you see, because these are roles that we have been conditioned to play in the new world order. And I don't know if we went to a conference and accepted these roles, but one way or the other, we have fallen into this acting mode. And it's
Winnie, why do you think Africans, not just in Africa but all over the diaspora, have quit being African?
yeah, because we don't want to be anything that represents Africa to start with. We don't want to be that. We want to be, show how much we know Asian culture. We want to show how much we know Arabic culture. We want to show how much we know European culture, but we definitely do not show equal enthusiasm and interest in portraying African culture. And that's very disturbing, you see, because all of this bleaching and things we're seeing, it's not by accident. It is because when you turn on the TV, back then and now, all what you see is anything but African. And so you have all of these people inspired by the wrong things and wanting to be the wrong things, and you can't be anything other than yourself. You can pretend to be Asian, but when you get to Asia, the Asians are going to smack you and tell you, nigga, you're African. You see? And that's the difference. So we need to have this discussion, and I wanted to have it in sections actually, because when you look at African society today, we need to look at it in terms of the economy, in terms of social oriented development and political development. So if we look at that and we look at what we are doing today as African people as against what we're supposed to be doing. I'm not here to dictate what we're supposed to be doing, but at least I have a pretty good idea what we're expected to put out. You see, and that's not we're not pulling our weight. We're just imitating. You see, we're imitating, and so I'm gonna look at it in three sections. You see, and in the three sections, I'm gonna look at social oriented development or social development of
Mm-hmm.
African people worldwide. I'm going to look at political development worldwide, and I'm going to look at economic development worldwide. And I'm going to look at how we're just going around in circles and we're not really, we're doing some things, but we really are hitting below our weight. And I'm sorry to say, but we're a laughing stock in the world.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
and no, you're absolutely correct, Awini, and it's embarrassing. Needless to
Yeah,
say.
yeah. So, socially speaking, I'm gonna go right into it. Socially speaking, uh, when you look at, and I think this is the most important aspect of our confusion and our wandering right now is socially speaking. You look at what should because when you look at sociology, what should go into the human being, because that is where we get our education from, that is where we get transformed. If you look at indigenous African societies before we got in contact with invaders, we had educational systems. I don't care what anybody says. We did not need to go in a classroom, but every society had a system in place to train people, young people, adolescents, about what their roles must be in the society.
Mm-hmm.
And in this training, a lot of young people learn the basic roles that they must play. For instance, girls were taught how they should deal with puberty.
Mm.
Girls were taught how they should deal with things like childbearing and what have you. Boys were taught how to be real men, you know, and this went to solidify the societies that we built. And this is what is missing today. We, after getting in contact with foreign cultures and after having our cultures diluted by foreign cultures, We lost that, and we somehow we miraculously think that the church or the mosque or the school is supposed to replace that, and they're not doing that to the level that we were doing it. And so the end result is we have a people that come out of adolescence, they become adults and don't have any orientation as to what their role must be in the African society.
Mm.
Now, this is the cardinal point in our confusion, because we don't have a system of education. People want to call education formal and non-formal. Education is education. We don't have a system of education to prepare our children to play the roles that they're supposed to play based on the philosophy that we have decided for ourselves.
Mm.
You see? And as a result of that, you have people passing through school, they're coming out not having the faintest idea who they are. A lot of people want to, imitate Europeans. They want to imitate Asians, and Hispanics, and what have you.
Hmm.
They want to do, why? Because our societies have not prepared them to be African.
Right.
That's the plain and simple. And part of that preparation, like I'm trying to say, is education. So you go to school, it's not only about learning one plus one.
Right.
Everybody learns one plus one. So what is the difference between African education and Asian education and European education? The European trains his child to be European first and foremost before he teaches him one plus one. You see, the Asian teaches their children one plus one, but they first of all teach them you're an Asian. And
Right.
these are the things that are expected of you as an Asian. Is built into the educational system. We have found ourselves in a place where we inherited educational systems thinking we didn't have any educational systems, which is false, which is why our early leaders, such as Nkrumah and others, were all about reconscientizing the African and building the African centered educational system, which never happened. Most people fail to recognize that most of our early freedom fighters lost the fight.
Right.
They were they were betrayed by our own people
Why? Why?
first and
Why?
foremost.
Awini, why is that? Why were our freedom fighters who were operating in the best interest of our people betrayed so easily?
Yeah, well, I what I look at it, when you look at the various circumstances, you look at it and you understand that our own people did not have an understanding of what the freedom fighters were trying to do. That's number one. They didn't. Some of them didn't have an understanding of it, so their level of participation in the freedom fight was lower than expected. And then we had greedy people among us, and we still have them today, and they are the ones controlling African society today, pretty much.
Right.
That's why we're still a laughing stock in the world. We consume so much and produce so little.
Right.
Uh, yeah, so pretty much from what I know, lack of understanding of what the early leaders were trying to achieve, because some of them had gotten so exposed and their level of understanding was high and above. They were ahead of their time. And some other people who had the potential to understand were so greedy that they just didn't want to go along with it. They thought they were special, and they still think they're special, and that all of us cannot benefit equally. And when we pursue this line of thought, we're going to go into the class struggle. You see, and
Right.
that's also very central to the issue, of African problems. But it's not only us. You know, I think that we need to relook at what the factors there that militated against our early leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to study that as a program on its own, and we need to do our own analysis based on the facts, and we need to move forward from there. You see, but just to hammer the point home, what our early African leaders, those good African leaders, and we had a lot of them. I should say that overall, my impression about African people worldwide is that African people want good things, they support good things.
Yes.
The problem, however, is that because a lot of African people are afraid to lead, because we have leaders, so many leaders in our society, natural leaders who don't want to the plate, step up to the plate. Because a lot of Africans are timid and don't want to lead,
Why?
they
Why? Why? Let me. Okay. No. Not to. Sorry to interrupt. Why are they? Why are Africans so timid?
why again? Because of the way we were socialized. It's the sociology. Is, for instance, if you go to school in Africa, like I went to school in Africa, you have a lot of whipping, caning in the schools. Questioning is not encouraged in the school system. And that's a problem. If you have an educational system that doesn't encourage questioning, then you're just brainwashing people.
Right.
You see, and that's the difference. And most people say that, well, some Africans will say, well, if you question, then you're being rude and arrogant. That's the difference. If you there are different kinds of social systems. If you train a child, to respect you and not disrespect you by doing things that would be rude and what have you, and you set the rules in such a way that the child has room to know the difference between being rude to elders, which is our culture, and contributing to educational discussions,
Mm-hmm.
then would have created a system where we can balance
Mm-hmm.
between being polite and being assertive in a way that we express ourselves. And that's what's missing in African society. A lot of Africans, and I don't know about America, I don't know about that because I didn't grow up in the society, but a lot of Africans, most of us, in, for instance, an interview environment, you get nervous,
Right.
right? Some people say it's normal, but I don't think it's normal. When you go for an interview, or you go for a meeting or a face-to-face encounter, that
Mm-hmm.
is the point where you're supposed to focus and bring forward your ideas. You see, and that's, I think that's an ingredient that is missing in Africa. Is young people have not been socialized to be confident enough to speak up.
Right.
You see, and that's a problem. So when we had these early leaders, a few of them who broke those chains and iconized them, we looked up to them and so on.
Hey,
Who
brother, brother,
also,
brother, brother Awini, you're going in and out a little bit. Just in, just a little.
oh, okay, let me reposition my phone. Is it better?
Yeah, that's better. Go ahead. Let me ask you. Well, finish your thought. Then we got a couple questions in the chat room. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when we produced these early leaders such as Malcolm X, right? I take Malcolm X for instance, and this is a man who was self-educated, who broke the ceiling, and he started to make an impact. But one thing we forget is we also have the Uncle Toms and people who are greedy and who also have these talents, and they don't want to use them for our benefit. They want to use them for their personal benefit. And so we become like a lamb. You see, we become like sheep, and we're looking. Very few of us can step up to the leadership plate, and so we're just standing and looking at the fight between our big brother, God, and the devil.
Mm. So, hey, brother Awini, can I ask a couple questions from the chat?
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
So question number one from Seth, who's actually from Ghana as well. How do you feel about
Mm.
Nana Addo, uh, the government under the leadership of Nana Addo?
Well, uh, I'm gonna first of all I'm gonna talk about what I expect. Is not honestly the tradition he represents is not my ideal. I think that Africa should be industrializing, mm, which is not happening. That it's past overdue. We have to stop exporting raw materials and importing finished goods.
Right.
This is not happening. This is not happening. I don't necessarily I find nothing wrong with the private enterprise or private sector oriented systems, market systems. But if those systems are designed in a way to enable foreign multinational interests to milk Ghana, I'm against that.
Mhm.
and
Okay.
and that's another issue I have with the systems that were working with these neoliberal economic systems that have not worked for us since 1983 under Rawlings. Since we became a fourth republic, it doesn't seem to be working. We're at the IMF right now.
Mm.
You see, and there's job retrenchment. There's hardly enough money to pay. I'm a graduate. There's hardly enough money to pay people like us.
Mm.
So you have to do your own business. So that's one. So my ideological orientation does not support what the current government is doing. That's one. But as far as the fight against corruption, I think recently the picking of the appointment of the special prosecutor, Martin Amidu, is a step in the right direction. He has the tenacity and the experience of what have you to deal with white collar crime in Ghana, which
Mm.
is a good thing. And the fact that the president picked a man who is from the opposition party is a good sign as well.
Mm.
Um, but I think that it's so far the signs are good. The signs are not bad. The signs are good that in the next 2 or 3 years we would have some basic things in place. But I I say from an ideological perspective that nothing we are doing right now has not has is new. All of these things have been tried before.
Mhm.
It does not ultimately liberate us. We're just surviving.
Hmm. Now, the question number two: should Africans be religious first or African first?
We should be African first. What do you mean? Look, most people don't get this.
Mhm.
If you go to Indonesia, hmm,
Right.
Indonesia is virtually Islamic, totally.
Correct.
Now, Indonesians can be Islamic and still retain their Indonesian heritage.
Correct.
Now, why is it that when you come to Africa, a lot of Africans are confused between being a Muslim and being, a pro or Arabist? Being a Muslim, it doesn't make you an Arab, or being an Arabist. So a lot of us, we need to first understand that we are Africans first, because it's the creation first. It's God that made us African.
Mm.
We have to accept that first, and then we can build on, as in terms of religion and what have you. I'm not saying we shouldn't believe in God. I'm saying that we shouldn't confuse ourselves in terms of whether we want to, be pro Arab, pro Europe, pro Christian, and what have you. It doesn't. That's a private matter. You come to Ghana, there are Muslims and Christians,
Right.
right? But as far as development is concerned, then when we have a blackout, then it doesn't matter whether you're Muslim or Christian. You still have your lights out.
Right.
You see? So on the private side, you could choose to do whatever you want to do. But when you come to national interests, then you should be African first. Everybody in the world represents their race first
Right.
before any other thing. But we seem to want to kiss somebody's ass
Mm-hmm.
before kissing our own ass.
And let me ask you this, Awini. When you hear Africans say that race is a social construct and that Africans don't understand race, that everything is tribal, how do you feel about that? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a tragic statement, because I would have thought that with slavery and colonialism, even though fine, we started by saying that a lot of Africans haven't been educated to real slavery, and even colonialism. Uh, but one would have thought that if we learn what happened to us,
Mm-hmm.
then we should understand that there are certain people that just don't like us. And
Right.
if we bond together and say, okay, then let's do our things together, then that shouldn't make us racist. That should mean that we have self realization about our situation. We are Africans first, and there's nothing racist or wrong with that. There's
Mm.
nothing wrong with that. We're just being ourselves.
Right.
You see, and there's no reason why we should be in a continent blessed with everything and we're still begging. And our leaders still give excuses for why we're still begging. And we're following them.
Mm. Mm.
Mhm.
Well, brother, I was going to say, I think that's all the questions we have for now. So go ahead and continue with, I guess you're going to go to point number 2.
Yeah. So, but just looking at the social, orientation of African people when we got in contact with new systems, because you have to remember that there were certain forces that brought about the changes that the planet is experiencing right now. The industrial revolution, for instance, brought about the need for skilled labor, the production of goods and services. And so when all of these things came, we in Africa, we never had the chance to really decide how we want to participate in the new world order, the new systems in the world. We never got a chance. We we at first were being pulled into the Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
Then later, some of us, even my grandfather, he fought in the Second World War for the British. I mean, we were being tossed left and right,
Right.
fighting for causes that were not ours. They were not really designed by us to help us or anything. We were just fighting. And that's what we're doing right now. We don't have direction. Where we want to go, we have not decided. I'm sorry to say, we have not decided where we want to head as a continent or as a group of people in the world. And this is important because if we don't decide where we want to go, you see all the resources and trees and what have you we have, we're going to lose all of that and we're going to be worse off than we are right now because we're in a situation in the world right now where we provide the world with the needed raw material and we sit back and we expect the world to take care of us, which they don't because they end up giving us loans and debt. That's what we end up with, you see. So we need to relook at the social orientation and train educate our people in Africa to look take a serious look at what is it that Africa wants. What do we want? We have not decided. We are being led on by the IMF, by all of these economic. They say it's either this or that. You're either capitalist or you're socialist, and what have you. We have not had the opportunity to even explore and have a system that is complementary to us. So if we don't have that, we haven't decided what we want, then ultimately we will not have a system to prepare us to achieve what we want, which is the education. Because first you decide what you want, which is the philosophy. The philosophy gives you an overall understanding of what it is you want and why you exist and all of that. It gives you the overall picture. And then based on that, you design an educational system to achieve that. So we have, and that's why we're strapped right now. We have all of these programs in the university that we study, and we come out, we have nothing to do.
Mhm.
So, so why are we studying them? If they're not needed at this point in Africa, then why are we wasting our resources, our time studying these useless programs, and then we come out and we have nothing to do than to go back to the streets and try to build from the grassroots. Why didn't we concentrate on entrepreneurial development in the first place rather than wasting our time with all of these fancy programs? It means we don't know what we want. You see,
Right.
that's the core issue. And so when you look at Africa's social development, we have a very confused system. I'm sorry to say very confused
Yes.
because our early leaders who were very good, people like Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, within the space of 3 or 4 years, has
Right.
transformed Burkina Faso. He started Fabric, people, all of these things. We don't, we when our early leaders decided to sit down, let us sit down and really look at this issue of what it is that we want and how we should redefine the African in the new world. We did not go along with that. And so, as a result, we don't know what we want to be.
Mm.
We don't know. And a lot of us, we say even our clothing and our appearance is not accepted. We can't get certain jobs because we have an afro. That's so crazy. You can't get a job because you look like the way God made you. You see, and all is because we have not really asserted ourselves. We have not defined ourselves socially, because when we began to abandon the territorial states and embracing the nation states, it behooved us to re examine this issue of the African personality and how we should develop this African personality. We have not done that. And so the result of that is what we're seeing. We have all of this bleaching, we have all of this, frying of hair, we have all of this nose, people go to get a nose job, a face job, all of these things, because people are running from themselves. They want to be what they are seeing on the TV. And this is all part of the socialization process. Is you don't control the media, which is a socialization tool, you see. And if we don't get all of that together, then our children are going to be far lost than we are lost right now, because he's going to go want to hang out with the Koreans and the Japanese, and they're going to smack him or her and tell him, look, you don't belong here. You see, you don't belong here. Go with your own people. What do you have? And we're going to look like a people who had nothing, but we had everything. Why is it that we are not putting that forward with all the, like, you advertise captains and all of these, with all of the production, like the ingenuity and the cultural richness of Africa? Why is it that we idolize foreign concepts that are not superior to ours, not even in quality? Why are we idolizing those ones over ours? It is because we have not had a system in place to imbibe it into us. So when you don't have the right social structures, the result is disastrous, because people don't learn how to be politically astute. They don't know how they can contribute economically. And so we now end up with all of this confusion of wanting to follow world models as if those models came from God and we cannot receive them from God. We have brains. We were the first intellectuals, for God's sakes. We have the brains to sit down and re-look at the world systems and re-figure out how we can fit in and how we can be game players and game changers in this. We have what it takes. And I know that the current leaders, the leaders of Africa, they're not all about that. Like Dr. Sebi said, that the white man controls Africa now more than before, and it's true, because in the earlier days we were still fighting with them. We didn't totally accept them, but today you have African leaders who literally go and beg for a European to come and recolonize them, bits and crumbs.
Hey,
You see?
there's a question in the chat room, Winnie. Someone was asking, could you define what it means to be Africa?
That's a
I mean, could
serious
you define
question.
what it means to be African? I'm sorry.
I get the question. That's a serious question that we have not answered. But if I can speak based on what I know, being African means being in the best interest of Africa, plain and simple. You
Say
see?
that.
And that means
Say that one more time.
being African
Mhm.
means being in the best interest of Africa
There we
first.
go. Bam. Mm.
You see, and that means that in any our lives, it must promote Africa. There's no reason why you should be an African and you promote other people. Then you don't love yourself. You see? So, yes, uh, African clothing has been defined for some people, but I have not find some of our governments, I should give them credit that they do adorn themselves in African clothing, and those are the tangible things, the things you can see with your eyes. But most importantly, the things you cannot see with your eyes, which is the psychology of the African. This is the most important thing. And the psychology of the African must be that our ultimate interest is to see Africa do well, plain and simple. And whatever means we can use to achieve that without humiliating ourselves, then we must use it.
Mm.
Yeah. So when you look at, you move from, I've talked a little bit about the social aspects. So all of these, things we do, you see, and you see, I have to draw a separation. I see nothing wrong with participating in foreign culture if only we put it in the right perspective. You see, for instance, we have foreigners come to Africa and they participate in African things we do, such as festivals. And you've been to Benin, you had some foreigners there,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Right. If they come and they know that they're foreigners, and yet they want to participate for having an exotic experience, there's nothing wrong with that. You see? But when we throw away totally our African, stuff or Africanness, and we full out go and say we want to be somebody else, then that's just like having a MacBook Pro with a Windows operating system, and it's not going to work perfectly. It's going to be a joke, and that's why we're a joke today, because we want to have an African brain with a European or Asian philosophy in it. It's not going to work properly. I'm not saying it won't work. It'll work, but it won't work the way it has to work.
Mm.
See? So even politically, beginning to argue
Yes.
that the 4 year term that we have in Africa, 4 years or 5 years, we must change government and so on, democracy, is not really the ideal for us. People are beginning to look at it critically. I did mention a while ago that the German chancellor is going now for, I think, the fourth term consecutively, which would mean she's going about 12 years in power. Because I do remember around 2008 or so, she came into power. I think even before then, and she's still there, right?
Right.
Nobody is singing about. Nobody is singing about, she's been there for too long and what have you. We need to have the independence and the audacity to decide for ourselves what political systems work for us. If you study some of the political systems in Africa before the onslaught of foreign political systems, they were working pretty well, even though were oriented toward a monarchy, with a king and his family ruling a dynasty and what have you. It seemed to have been working. For some reason, people want to think that if you have a change of government every 4 years, then it's progress. That's bull. That's not. Look at China.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying we should copy China, but look at the Chinese have told the world, look, we're going to do it the way that it works for us, and it's either you respect that or we don't care. You see,
Mm-hmm.
and the world seemed to have accepted it. So we, as a people, we think that to be enlightened and to be accepted in the new world order. I keep using the word new world order because there's no other expression I can use because this is the new system that we're in. We seem to think that to be accepted in this system, we should go and take wholesale what other people are doing and come and do it. It doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. What the system America is practicing right now is designed for America. It's not designed for Africa. It's designed by Americans for Americans. It's not designed for us. So we don't go to America and take that system and think it's going to work here
Mm-hmm.
the way it's working there. It just doesn't make sense. You see, and that is why we are in this. Togo is in a crisis right now.
Okay, I mean, let me stop you right there about Togo. I went to Togo. I was in Togo last month, and
Mhm.
when I landed at the airport, they have a brand new airport, which is absolutely beautiful. I
Mm.
was in the streets, and it was peaceful and quiet as hell.
Mm. Yeah, peaceful and quiet because there were riots there and there was a high security alert, and so you wouldn't find that many people outside as you would have normally. You see, but if we get to the root of it, you see, pretty much France still controls its colonies in Africa. That's what it is. You
Right.
see, it really shouldn't matter whether Yassin Bey is overstaying his term or not, because that is a matter that should have been resolved by the AU, right? The AU should have the wherewithal to resolve its internal matters with the utmost respect for independent borders and what have you. Like our president Nana Akufo-Addo went to Togo to try to negotiate you know for peace in Togo before he left for Germany and the United States. But uh, we should be able to resolve these issues on our own.
Mm.
See, but when you look at the political atmosphere, and that's why I chose this wandering in the wilderness, is we don't really know what we're doing. A lot of our leaders are taking advantage of the
Hmm.
ignorance of African people worldwide, and they are reaping billions and trillions of dollars for their own pockets.
Hmm.
That's what it is.
Mm.
And it's saddening, but that's what it is. Is a lot of leaders are in it for themselves, and there are only a few leaders, such as Thomas Sankara and Kwame Nkrumah, who, when they left government, they had not even Nkrumah didn't even have a house for
Right.
himself.
Mm.
He had nothing for himself, not because he didn't have foresight to steal for himself. He just didn't think it was right. You see, and it's only a few leaders I can say have this sort of orientation. And so, at the end of the day, when you look at the systems that we have come in contact with and that we have embraced, we
Hmm.
have a lot to do. Have a lot to do.
Yes.
The system is now it's not really working the way it must work, because when you look at how it must work, the three arms of government must be completely independent. But here you have the executive, which is the people we elect, appointing judges, which
Mm.
is wrong. You can't appoint, you cannot have any influence over the judiciary. If you want a country to work properly, judges and the legal system must be completely autonomous and also be equal to you in terms of power, and that they have nothing to fear of, the elected politicians.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
But we don't have that. We don't have that. Even in the West, they don't have that. You see?
Mm-hmm.
And so it begins to beg the question, if we really want a system that will work and be responsive enough, then are we really going to go down this road and keep following things that we did not design, and just pray and hope that those systems work?
Mm.
I know some countries are trying their best. They're trying to tweak, fine tune these systems to work, but it's still not easy. And the citizenry are just left powerless. You see, and so that's the politics. All of this, we're just running around in circles. Don't know what we're doing.
Mm.
You see, even I'm gonna move even economically. Uh, People will say, we're capitalists now. We're capitalists, and that's what's going to work for us. But capitalism, it seemed to have failed us. It seemed to have failed us because capitalism has left us without any economic power. We don't have the economic power to participate. We don't have the skills to participate. You see, we belong in a system where a lot of the means of production is owned by private capital.
Right.
You see, which is not a bad thing. If only private capital was still indigenous, it belonged to the people of the community, and there was a system to ensure that the proceeds from that investment would trickle down into the community. There's nothing wrong with that. See? So if you look at the economic system that Africa is practicing right now, we are just trying to sustain our budgets by selling raw material and using the money from that to finance social projects such as schools, hospitals, and what have you, water and sanitation, and so on. But the real engine of the economy is not working. Where the money is supposed to come from is a big question mark. And so we end up having to go to the same people who brought us the system to borrow. And that's what we've been doing for since independence.
Mm. Hey, there's a question in the chat room, Awini. Stepping
Mm.
away from this discussion, what specific steps can we take starting today?
What specific step? I keep I keep talking about the $1 project.
Okay, and somebody brought that up today, the $1 project.
Look, there is no other way we can participate in this system without the means to do so. Uh, we can pull together our little money. It's not little. We can pull together our money and we can begin to systematically invest that money in a way that guarantees returns to us. Maybe not financial returns all the time, because when you're talking of education, like we're talking about, for instance, I keep mentioning what Dr. Umar Johnson is trying to do. If you have in each, like you take Atlanta, Georgia, and you have maybe for each I don't know what you have, boroughs or something. You have for each borough a number of indigenous schools, like what what do you call them? The Jews have synagogues and these schools for their youth to go to, but they go to regular schools and they still go to these schools to get oriented about being a Jew. You see, we need a parallel system like that. We need schools or institutions that we can send our children to learn about being African. We need those systems. And we need them to be very well resourced with all the material pertaining to Africa. Best teachers to teach the subject and to answer questions that the children have to ask and to orient them about what is expected of them
Mm.
in the world. Because we cannot be a homeless people who think that the world is just it's just a playground and we just grow up and we integrate. No, that's not how the world works. The Arab trains his child to be an Arab first.
Right.
The
Right.
Chinese trains his child to be a Chinese first
Right.
before any other thing. We're the only people who seem to think that that's not necessary. It's a
Right.
big mistake. So, like I was saying, if we have the resources, the money to set up these institutions wherever we find ourselves, then we can have the, the social orientation that I was talking about. And that's the foundation of everything. Once we have that, then we're good to go. Because you don't need to spend all your time like we're doing right now
Hmm.
talking
Right.
why it's important to help and why it's important to do stuff to help African people worldwide. And no, you don't need to do that because you taught the child from when he was very young and he remembers and it's imbibed in him. So it's no coincidence that most
You there?
these foreign systems we had that. Even every tribe had an educational system built into the society to teach the children about being members of the tribe
Mm.
and what is expected of them. So we need to expand that idea and say, what does it mean to be an African in the world?
Uh.
And what do you need to know about yourself? And so we need these institutions, right? And to have these institutions up and running and to have somebody there permanently to do the job and get paid for it, it doesn't have to come free because somebody needs to do their job and still have a family, right? So somebody needs to get paid to do that. Then we need to pull together our $1 a month. I think it's very simple if you want to do it. Uh, there's nothing stopping African people from establishing their own institutions wherever they go. Chinese people come and they establish Chinatown and what have you. American government doesn't go and bomb them or try to shut it down, do they?
Mm.
So why what is stopping African people worldwide from having this African centers of education
Mm.
where we send our children at least once a week to learn and then we have a curriculum where the necessary ingredients are imbibed in the child so that he comes out as a responsible African in the world. So those two things. First, we need to get the resources, and the idea of the $1 is very feasible.
Yes.
And I
Hey,
see.
let me, if I can interrupt, please. So the $1 project, and let me get your thoughts on this, brother Baba. I have a nonprofit organization. I'm
Mm,
working on changing the name to Africa Personified. Okay, under that
mhm,
umbrella, we'll have the $1 project. So people, March is going to be a very busy month for me because I have to do the $1. I have to get that set up. There's some other projects I'm
mm,
working on. So I plan to have a site where you guys could donate to the $1 project on
Yeah,
africapersonified.com. And then what me and Brother Baba will do, we'll put together some action items as far as where your money's gonna go. So, but go ahead
exactly,
and continue.
exactly. And another thing that needs to happen, and honestly, like I have this in my own projects as well. That I've been caught up in some things right now, but uh, it's going to be very transparent. I see no reason why people should donate money and they don't see how much has been raised in total and what the plans are for that money, and whether some people in constituencies. So, for instance, if you're in Atlanta, Georgia, you can strategically divide Atlanta, Georgia into constituencies, and why we can have representatives of these constituencies participating in decision making as to how the money is going to be used, and these representatives go back to the grassroots and report regularly to the contributors and keep spreading this. I see no reason why we can't do this. We have to learn to trust ourselves with these things. And if it's open and everybody knows what's going on, I mean, I see no reason why we cannot pull it off.
Hmm.
So another question.
Let's see here. Let's see if we got any more questions in the chat room. Uh, Now, but Blaine, I already have a nonprofit, so might as well make it where people can have a tax write off as well. So why not? I already have a
Yeah,
nonprofit, so
yeah. So let's get that going.
mhm,
Especially like you're organizing the diaspora.
mhm.
I'm organizing here in Africa. I've reached out to a lot. Like I belong in a lot of groups, social media, what have you. I've reached out to a lot of people. They like the idea, and we get it going. I have a few people who have already committed themselves to this and they're willing to do it. Um, but most of all, not to digress much, we need to quickly come out of this foolishness, of wanting to be anybody but African,
Right,
because you can't be anything other than yourself. And so if we are able to come out of this wilderness that we're in right now, it's necessary to be in the wilderness because we're trying to find our way back. That's what we're doing right now. As the African community, we're trying a lot of things. We're seeing some of our people go wayward and all of that. We're trying to go back, you see. But some of us have a broader understanding of the situation than others. I'm not saying this in a boastful tone, but some of us, have a bigger picture, a perception of the situation. A lot of us think that it's just happy go lucky, and we can have fun, and everything is okay, and we use technology that we do not make, and we think that we're comfortable. No, 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 no. We have got to go back and regain what it is that people like Elijah McCoy, Charles Drew, Garrett Morgan, Benjamin, all of the early inventors, what it is that was sticking in their mind that caused them to produce the things they produced, and what it is that we can produce for ourselves to improve our lives as a people first, and then the world, you see. And so, if we are able to come out of this wilderness and find our way back to ourselves and re embrace ourselves, because Right now, a lot of us are really ashamed of being African. A lot of us. There is no coincidence. Like I keep saying, it's the way we socialize. I I was following a thread on YouTube, a Ghanaian thread, and there was this Ghanaian preacher talking about, the world belongs to the white man, and I nearly, had a heart attack because if you have this sort of thinking in your mind, you can do anything for yourself. See,
Mm.
so we need to come out of the wilderness. If we've had enough time to wander, and I, I think it's time that we begin to come out of that and regain our Africanness. There's nothing to be ashamed of in being African. There's so much that our people have contributed to world civilization, and we are still doing some things in the world that do not get press, and we need to really come back to some sanity. Otherwise, we are going to continue to be a serious laughing stock in the world. And there's a reason why some people do not want us to succeed,
Mm.
because if we succeed, they don't keep getting what they get from us, from Africa. We don't need. I keep saying this. We don't need. We don't. We need ourselves.
All right, thank you, Awini. We appreciate it, man. So what we'll do, we'll go ahead and close out. Is there anything else you want to share in closing before we log off? And
Yeah.
also, and
Well.
also, and also, make sure you give people your contact information as well.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. People can reach me on WhatsApp on 00232483125. That's 00232483125. If you send me a WhatsApp message, I'll respond to you. But it's good to have keep the community alive. I think that we are a community oriented people. We should keep that still alive. It's our only chance to do something about our situation. We should keep going. And I hope to be able to have more discussions on other topics concerning African people worldwide with you. I thank you all for having me on.
Oh, no, no problem, Awini. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for the jewels that you dropped
Mhm.
this evening. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you guys for everything. Really appreciate it. Like I said, this year we're really gonna grow this platform. So Africa Personified, that's gonna be up. Hopefully, I'll have that done. Really, what I need like a retreat for just a whole week because I have so much I have to do that I got to get finished, and I really want to knock it out in March. So going into April, it'll all be done. So the $1 project will be on Africa Personified. And again, I have a nonprofit organization, and I'll type the name of it. It's DFDU. I'll go ahead and type that in. Spell check. That's a nonprofit right now, but I'm actually going to this spell check. Golly, DIEUFDIEUL. Okay, Tay, where have you been? Oh, I always need help, Tay. You can come volunteer for me. Absolutely. So yeah, everybody. Again, y'all just turned me off. Why do you say that, S Greeny? You have high opinions of yourselves, but hold up a mirror to see you are flawed. I don't understand. I missed something. But again, Awini, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Um, Again, everybody, make sure you reach out to Awini as well on Facebook. He's on there as well. His contact information will be in the description section of the video once it's posted. Also, go to dynastymirror.com. Go to searchforhuru.com. Also, make sure you go to amazon.com. Search your name, Dynasty Mirror. Please buy a book. Ingrid, thank you so much. Ingrid, do me a favor. Send me, I think I have your, Ingrid, did you get the postcard? I swore I sent you a postcard. And Awini, I need your address too, so I can send you a postcard as well. Oh, Awini already left. Damn. Awini already did. It wasn't you, some in the room hating black women. Okay. I swore I got a, I swear there's a moderator here. Sultan, are you still in here? Okay, I guess Sultan dipped. But Ingrid, thank you so much for the super chat. Everybody who super chatted, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Again, the funds are going to growing this platform. Make sure you guys are following me, liking, subscribing on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook. That's search for who there as well. Again, everybody, thank you so much. Please share and like the videos as well. Till next time, family, I'll be back on tomorrow around this time. So the next time, Dynasty Mirror, search for Huru. Peace.